blessing to you, because little becomes much when you place it in the Master's hand. Just ordinary people. I'm glad God still uses plain old ordinary people. Yes, He does. He chooses people like me, people like you, people willing to do as He commands. Oh yes, God uses people that are willing to give Him all. You see, to God it never really matters how small your all might seem to, because your little becomes so much. Oh, but you gotta place it in the Master's hand. You see, it's just like that little lad who gave Jesus everything he had. How the multitude was fed with the fish and the loaves of bread. What you have may not seem like very much, but once you yield to the touch of the Master's loving hand, then you begin to understand how your life could never ever again. You'll never be the same. Just ordinary people. I'm glad God uses. It ain't no ordinary people. Yes, He does. He chooses people like me, people like you, people willing to do as He commands. Let me see your hand if you'll do whatever the Lord will command. Yes, I will, Lord. God uses people that are willing to give Him all. You see, to God it never really matters how small your all might seem to you, because your little becomes so much. Ah, but the difference is when you place your life in His hands. Give Him all, give Him all, give it all to Jesus. Your little becomes so much when you place it in the Master's hand. Come on, give your everything to Jesus. Yeah. Little becomes so much when you place it in the Master's hands. Lay it right down in the Master's hands, in the Master's hands.
Whose bright idea was it to put the slideshow before the spouse comes up? You know, I'm looking around with all of our friends and family here. It's just such an honor and privilege. I told family, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But we have to do this. We have to do this for two reasons. One is to honor Shaw. And number two is to honor our Heavenly Father. Because the Heavenly Father made all of this possible. There would be no slideshow. There would be no families. There would be no love. And I'd like to share just a couple things. The bad news is I'm the long-winded brother in the family. The other part of the bad news is I have 4 points. But the good news is he covered some of my points in his sermon. So, in 1968, our family moved here to Kelseyville, California. I was 12 years old. And my father's a minister, decided to take a break from being a minister and came to work for my grandfather, Floyd Foltz. And we moved into a house that was right next to a house on my grandfather's ranch called the Shirley House. And sure enough, like David mentioned, there were some pretty young ladies at that house. And Marsha happened to be the same age as I am. And where is my cousin Bobby? There he is, right there. There's cousin Bobby. So that was 68. In 1970, our cousins would come and stay with us in the summer. And by then, Marsha was now 14. And Marsha was getting cute. Very cute. And so I'm going to blame this on him. But we got the bright idea, as 14-year-old boys do. And by the way, 14-year-old boys do not make good decisions. I'll preface this. We found out through observation that the only shower on the ranch for the Shirley House was in a little shed behind Marsha's house. And 14-year-old boys, pretty girl, what did we decide to do, Cousin Bobby? So we had the bright idea that, well, let's just go follow Marsha one day when she goes to take her shower and just see. And we weren't even sure what we were going to see. We just see it. So, like stealth young men, I get up on the roof of the tent shed where the shower is. Bobby's down below where the window is. And I about broke my neck getting up there, and it was just clump. And if you ever heard a tin shed, when you're jumping on a tin shed, it just was making noise. Bobby's on the bottom, kind of banging around a little bit. And she had to have heard us. But no, we're 14-year-old boys. We hang around anyway. So a few minutes passed. I noticed that the door was going to be opening in a minute. And we went to hid, remember? We hid right around the shed. And Marsha comes climbing through the door as hard as she could. She looked around, she threw the towel over her neck, walked this direction. She turned around and said, "Nice try, boys." And that's when I fell in love with her. Right at that moment. Because at that moment in time, in that 14-year-old young woman, I saw what I wanted in a wife. 2 years later, and some of you have been in Lake County a long time, remember there was we actually had a snowstorm where people in the valley got snowed in for like 3 days in the early 70s. Well, we were next door neighbors, and it was very, very cool that we were next door neighbors, as Mike so eloquently talked about. And we had nothing else to do but eat, because there was no electricity. So the McQueen boys went over to the Mills girls, and we played games. We were snowed in for 3 days. And that cemented that I was falling for this young lady. But I was so romantically challenged, I wouldn't ask her out. So from the age of 15 all the way to the age of 21, we went to school together, we were next door neighbors, we became great friends. Never went on a date. Pathetic, isn't it? So my 21st birthday, I my mother set up a birthday party for me, and all the people coming to the party were in couples, except for me. And where's Russ Pizer? Russ, where are you? There's Russ Pizer. So my mom says, Marsha's next door. I bet she would actually come to the party if we asked her. So I did. And she came. It was shocking. I had a date for my own 21st birthday party. And we had the party. Then Russ, remember, we hopped into your car and we went over to Ukiah to go miniature golf. Remember that? And he was so cute, Russell. He was up there and he had the rearview mirror. Marsha and I were in the back seat. And he was adjusting that rearview mirror to see what we were doing. And sure enough, on the way back, the romantically challenged Georgie finally got the nerve to give her a swing. And it was like a bad movie, actually, because I about knocked her out trying to get my arm around her. She grabbed my arm, pulled it down, and she said, just kiss me. Just kiss me. And so I planted one on her, and it's kind of nice. Kind of enjoy that. We got back to the pear orchard. Rush dropped us off at the pear orchard, and we walked down the orchard, and our first words to each other was, we're in deep trouble. Our families are like this. We've got something's happening here, and it's either going to be, we're going to be ostracized from our family if we don't keep this relationship going, or we're going to be married for a long time. And I'm happy to say we're married for a long time. So that's a little bit of our romance and how we got there. And a lot of you are going, boy, that's a pretty pathetic story. So feistiness we've heard today. I have like 45 other stories. We're not going to do them. Item 2 for Shaw. She was a domestic Michelangelo, like many of you heard. How many would do me the favor of standing if Shaw ever made you something, or had you for dinner, or anything where she reached out to you? Wow. Pretty darn amazing, isn't it? Thank you guys very much for doing that. The morning after I got home, I was so honored to have my brother and sister-in-law stay with me after Marsha passed. And Tomas, thank you so much. She stayed with me that night. Very sleepless night. I call it my week sleep night. And I woke up the next morning, and the first thing that came to my mind is, I'm in deep trouble domestically. And I made a list, didn't I, David, of what I could do in the house and what I probably am not going to be able to do in the house. So first thing, cooking. She never let me in the kitchen. Nothing. Laundry. No. And her first year of marriage, I put that red shirt with those white things. Nothing. Right down the list, I couldn't do anything at all. And it's not because I didn't want to, it's because she was the Shaw. And she loved it in a certain way. And as many of you noticed, my kilt sagging a little bit today. For some reason, I've lost a lot of weight because of the ability that she had to cook. The third thing I want you to know about Marsha is how amazing her relationship with God was on a daily basis. We've all heard the scripture, pray without ceasing. Marsha, her definition of prayer was conversing with God. All day long, she would just have a running conversation with the Lord. I found out so much about you guys out here. Because she would walk around the house, I'd walk right in on her, and she'd say, Lord, my husband is really a jerk right now. We need to do something about that. And we'd have these conversations. And you guys would come up all the time. And it was usually in an intercessory way. She just wanted the best for each of you. And some of you all share some of the private prayers I heard, as she would talk to me. She didn't care. She knew what she wanted the Lord to do. And so she would constantly do that. The fourth thing was she was loyal and dependable in every relationship. You don't find that very often in this world, where someone will stick with you no matter what. A lot of you know our story. Not a lot of people would do that. Would stick with someone. And she was in a scenario where she would take a person's life, look at it, even though she hated a lot of things, Nate, great job, she would not judge people. said, we don't judge. God judges, maybe, but we don't judge. And that was a tremendous quality because that let her flourish in any relationship she had, because she would be able to work with that person, encourage them, but never give up on them. Marsha, as you've heard today, was an amazing woman. So the question I would ask is, how can we live without her? Which I've asked myself that many times. And the way we can live without her is to choose to be faithful. The night she passed, I knew that it was pretty hopeless. You know, Pastor was with us the night before, and the doctors and nurses were saying with the entire system shutting down, it would take a complete miracle for her to recover from this. And about 1 in the morning, I noticed some rustling. She'd been very quiet. Some rustling, and I was stroking her hair and holding her hand. And David was with me. Thank you, David. And she opened her eyes for the first time in about 5 or 6 hours, and she looked at me and she said, "Go home." And my first reaction on that was, she's telling me what to do again. Go home. But in retrospect,